Thank you so much for joining. On this channel, we will be discussing and showing videos on a wide variety of topics and things that I hope you will find interesting, fascinating, informative, useful, engaging, inspiring, fun, and worth your time. Some of the topics will be cars, vehicle reviews and impressions, music compilations, phone reviews, at-home food preparation and cooking, handmade illustrations and graphs, body contouring and sculpting, hair removal, custom creations, how-to videos with designs and sketches with a walkthrough, compilation videos, and much more. As such, to easily navigate this channel, just click on the playlist tab, sit back, and enjoy. Thank you so much once again for watching, and please, if you may, consider commenting, liking, and subscribing. Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in. The cars and trucks you will see here will all be sentimental and memorable for some, new and exciting for others, and unheard of by a select few. In the United States and all over the world, we are living through a transitional automotive period in which car-related knowledge we knew 10 to 15 years ago will be wildly different from what we will have 10 to 15 years from now. I mean this as if you were to own a car from 1974 and then get a new car in 1988, they were essentially powered by the same technology and motive force. Engine up front, put gasoline in, and off you go. And if you own a car in 1999 and upgraded to another newer version about a decade later, once again, it would be very similar, just newer. So, going from 1970 to 1980, or going from 1995 to the mid-2000s, really, honestly, didn't really have much change. Sure, the vehicles were newer, more efficient, more modern, but essentially, it was the same concept. Engine, gasoline, steering wheel, brakes, and so on. In contrast, going from 2011 to 2024, there is a profound difference in technology and powertrains and motive force. In the coming years, there will be even more choices to be made when purchasing a vehicle. In a short 15 years, it will be the year 2040. What version of vehicles and powertrains will be present, which will be rare, and which will be forever retired? At this time, we now have hybrid and electric cars, we have hydrogen-powered and fuel cell vehicles, and we also have augmented reality and semi-autonomous driving features, and much more. We have motors in the back and an engine in the front. We have 3 motors, and we even have quad in-hub motors, and hopefully soon, we will have a return to norm with actual physical buttons and beautiful knobs and the ability to use stereognosis once again. Nevertheless, within 5 to 10 years from now, the entire automotive industry and automotive field will be drastically different than what it is today. As such, I wanted to reminisce on what we had in the past that we will no longer have, an extended trip down memory lane that shows, explains, and discusses many of the most phenomenal and esteemed versions and implementations of the naturally aspirated V10 engine that was ever created in road-going vehicles. The almighty, powerful, and dynamic, often misunderstood but respected, supremely complex yet graceful, audibly sensational, V10 engines. The V10 engine has 10 cylinders, is piston-driven, situated in 2 separate 5-cylinder banks in a V configuration, sharing a common crankshaft. These engines are some of the rarest form of engines, just like the 5-cylinder engines were, as neither are as common as the 4, 6, 8, or even 12-cylinder engines that are made in the tens of millions annually. Their usage has been far and few, and limited to select exotics, commercial vehicles, some trucks and SUVs, a limited number of luxury cars, and some mouth-watering sports cars. Of the numerous car makers out there, only a select few dabbled with V10 engines, namely Dodge, Ford, BMW, Lamborghini, Porsche, Audi, Volkswagen, and Lexus. Most automakers install a V6 or V8 due to its performance-to-size ratio, as they are most certainly more compact than a V10. Also, when manufacturers turbocharge the V6 or V8 engines, they make sensational amounts of power. And yet, for those that crave exclusivity and panache and swagger, there are twin-turbo and quad-turbo V12 and V16 engines. Despite their rarity in mainstream vehicles, the power and performance of a highly tuned V10 shouldn't be overlooked, as they have most certainly been harnessed into some of the most iconic cars ever made. Up until the reveal of the Lamborghini Temerario, the Volkswagen Automotive Group was the only car manufacturer that produced road-going vehicles with a V10 engine. The most recent versions were the Lamborghini Gallardo, the Lamborghini Huracan, the Audi R8 V10, and the often overlooked Volkswagen Touareg V10 diesel. Please note, except for the first car discussed, all others following are in no special order, nor do they represent a hierarchy and are limited to production car V10 engines. Due to it being the first V10-powered gasoline road car in the early 1990s, the formidable, raucous, menacing, and intimidating Dodge Viper will be discussed first. The Dodge V10, Dodge Viper, and Dodge Ram SRT10. Irrespective of all the buzz going on with Hellcat this and Hellcat that, with a hint of demon or a red eye, there was a time that the word Viper was the end-all say-all, not too sophisticated and never subtle. The Viper was ostentatiously raw, raucous, and loud, and it undeniably wore that as a badge of honor. Dodge used this big, honking, hulking, naturally aspirated V10 in both the Viper and the Dodge Ram truck. The engine had a displacement of 8.0 liters and later 8.4 liters. This made it one of the largest engines placed in a car. It made anywhere from 300 horsepower at its lowest point, all the way up to 480 to 640 horsepower. In the original Viper, the sheer performance and power resurrected Dodge's name in the muscle car arena once again. Not only that, but it opened the floodgates for others to also toy with this wonderful idea. The others include the Super Performance Ultra High and Lamborghini, which was working with Chrysler at the time. The original Viper easily hit 0 to 60 in less than 5 seconds. In its initial iteration, the Viper made a stout 400 horsepower, while its counterpart in the Dodge Ram truck made a healthy 300 with its Magnum V10. Unfortunately, this version of Dodge's V10 used in heavy-duty trucks achieved just single-digit fuel economy. It was thirstier than a 16-cylinder, 1,200 horsepower, close to 300 miles per hour, hyper-performance Bugatti. By the time 2017 was here, the Viper V10 had ballooned to 8.4 liters and developed a phenomenal 645 horsepower in the Viper ACR Time Attack. Another fascinating truck with a lot of show and go was the street-dominating Dodge Ram SRT10, which was a monster on the road that absolutely commanded attention due to having limitless road presence. It was adorned with huge chrome rims, in-your-face styling, and a very deep, throaty exhaust. It made between 500 to 510 horsepower, and was the pinnacle of what a street-adapted race truck would look and feel like. For those from the electric era, think of it as the quickest, loudest, wildest, fastest, most powerful, and most extreme version of the Tesla Cybertruck, or the Rivian R1S then. Multiply that by 10. Loud, imposing, big, brawny, brutish, and with bravado. The Ford Triton V10, E and F Series, and the Ford Excursion. Not to be outdone by a honking, big-horned, powerfully persuasive V10 from Mopar, Ford developed a brawny and true-to-form V10 of their own. The Triton V10. This engine was used in multiple Ford products, such as the E-Series, Econoline, full-size vans, the always best-selling F-Series trucks, and the former champion of being one of the biggest family SUVs ever made, which easily dwarfed most of the cars around it at the time, the roomy, huge, and spacious Ford Excursion. Ford made this potent 6.8-liter V10, fitted into these gas-thirsty vehicles, and it made between 275 to 310 horsepower during its production life. At that time, this particular V10 was seemingly the king, sitting atop its dynasty. The BMW V10 S85, the BMW M5 and M6. Quite possibly, the most memorable and most notorious BMW engines ever made. A true-to-form, performance machine made by BMW that loved to rev hard, go fast, and make absolutely glorious F1-inspired sounds while doing it. In the BMW M5 and M6, this V10 made 400 horsepower when calm, cool, collected, and then suddenly, with a push of a button, made 507 horsepower. Instantly, it would rev hard to just under 8,300 RPM from its all-aluminum, naturally aspirated 5.0-liter V10, and it would rocket the cars from 0 to 60 in just over 4 seconds. Unfortunately, the V10 seemed to suffer catastrophic engine failure with rod, bearing, and throttle actuators, but when it was up and running, it was running hard. The Lexus V10 1LR GUE. The Lexus LFA. The much-loved and limited-production Lexus LFA was a two-seat supercar powered by a V10 made with some of the best Toyota and Yamaha engineers at the time. As such, the auditory tuning by Yamaha and sonorous exhaust sounds this car made were eargasmic. This all-carbon V10 LFA made a healthy 552 to 562 horsepower from its front mid-mounted, rapid-responding, high-revving V10 engine, which Lexus said had the size of a conventional V8 while weighing as much as a V6. The Lexus LFA had a highly tuned 4.8-liter V10 that would effortlessly rev to 9,000 RPM. Again, that is 9,000 RPM. Place this inside a two-seat, rear-wheel drive car with a beautiful orchestra out back, and just let the exhaust sounds be the music. Considered by many, this Lexus LFA and the Porsche Carrera GT are known in the auto industry as having and being the best-sounding supercars ever created. Although its starting price was incredibly high at first, and this threw off some people to discredit it as a supercar, history has shown that later on was, and still is, a very highly sought-after vehicle. Only 500 units were made. The Porsche V10 98001. The Porsche Carrera GT. the car that was known as Wild Tang by many readers from US car magazines. The Porsche Carrera GT is a car unlike any other. Prior to the 918, this was the Porsche, the pinnacle of what can be made with a screaming V10 and carbon fiber bits and pieces. It was simultaneously too young to be part of the automotive holy trinity, which consisted of the Ferrari LaFerrari, the McLaren P1, and the Porsche 918 Spider, and too old to be part of the 1980s Porsche 959 and Lamborghini Countach posters and calendar wars. It was just Porsche at one of its finest moments in history. This phenomenal, fabulous, fantastic, and futuristic car had a 603 horsepower, 5.7-liter naturally aspirated V10 that quickly and feverishly revved to 8,000 RPM. This engine had its roots based on some Formula One engine lineage, and being adapted as such, it is quite possibly one of the greatest sounding road cars of all time, especially for the fact that it was available with the ever-so-wonderful manual transmission. It enabled the 3,100-ish pound car to hit 60 in less than 4 seconds and reach speeds over 200 miles per hour. In total, 1270 units were built, costing about $500,000 then, and probably about $1 million or more nowadays. What an engine! What a car! The Lamborghini V10, the Lamborghini Gallardo, and Huracan. Being the very last road-going V10 vehicle that was sold, the Lamborghini Huracan holds a near and dear place in many hearts. It was the last salute to a sensational, sonorous, and spectacular piece of machinery. From this point in time, and moving forward, the ability to purchase a V10 road car is sadly, seemingly, forever gone. Supercar manufacturers and ultra-luxury car makers would usually implant a huge V12 engine and call it a day, knowing that V12, for its time, was the biggest, baddest, and boldest expression of, yeah, I got it. And this worked quite well for Lamborghini, until about 1998 when Audi purchased it. It was apparent that Lamborghini needed an entry-level supercar to make ends meet by being less expensive and selling in higher numbers. Enter the Gallardo with a 5.0-liter V10. The eternal and everlasting competition between Lamborghini and Ferrari is as intense and fiery as any debate is between the Mustang and Camaro, or Porsche and Corvette. This rivalry stems back to its origins, and by the time Lamborghini had its answer to Ferrari, it was in the form of a supremely more powerful, potent, poised, and proper V10. It was out to one-up or two-up Ferrari in every way. So to do this, Lamborghini installed a naturally aspirated 5.0-liter V10 in their entry-level Gallardo. In the Gallardo, it produced between 500 to 560 horsepower, albeit with two different versions of the V10 and newer tech implemented. During its tenure, it increased to 5.2 liters and was implanted into the Huracan. By this time, it produced a healthy 640 horsepower at 8,000 RPM, enabling the vehicle to hit 60 miles per hour in around 3 seconds, sometimes less, and came in both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. As with all things that come to end, the end of the V10 engine for sale to the consumer in a production vehicle is the Lamborghini Huracan STJ, which is limited to just 10 units. It is truly the last hurrah, the last dance, the final moment in history for this formidable and unique engine layout. The Audi V10, the Audi S6, RS6, Audi S8, and the Audi R8 V10. In the mid-2000s to early 2010s, Audi wanted to administer a lovingly painful Charlie horse to BMW M and Mercedes AMG in the thigh. How so? Audi chose to pop in a hefty, thirsty, sport-tuned V10 in their sedans, the Audi S6, RS6, and the Audi S8. The engine had a displacement of 5.0 liters and later, 5.2 liters. It initially made 429 horsepower in the S6 and 444 horsepower in the S8. But Audi wasn't done just yet. So, in the RS6, the newfangled V10 made 572 horsepower, making both BMW and Mercedes feel the heat. Upping the sports car credo, Audi implemented a V10 version of their curvaceous and curvy R8 vehicle. In this form, it made 518 horsepower, and later in its final form, made 602 horsepower and propelled the car to 60 in just over 3 seconds. The VW V10, Volkswagen Touareg diesel. And now for the final cars on the list. The often overlooked and forgotten Volkswagen Touareg V10 diesel SUV and the Phaeton V10 diesel luxury sedan. Both featured a twin-turbocharged 4.9-liter diesel V10 engine, which made about 309 to 345 horsepower. How often does a luxury sedan or SUV come with a twin-turbo, diesel, V10 engine? To my viewers, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I hope the time you spent watching this video was useful, helpful, informative, worth your time, and beneficial in every way. I would absolutely love to hear what your thoughts are in the comment section. And if there is anything I can do to make these videos better, more engaging, more informative, or interesting, please feel free to let me know. I would really appreciate it. Please help this channel grow by liking and subscribing. As always, I sincerely thank you in advance for your support. Thank you once again,